In episode 7, we open up on Coruscant, where Kane is skulking through the rainy streets of the city until she goes to an alleyway and meets up with an Imperial prep droid and gets a holographic message from Moff Gideon. There she tells him that Mandalorians have saved Navarro from pirates and that they're a lot more involved than they thought without the New Republic's assistance and all that. Moff is a little surprised, but, is kind of just, taking that in stride and coming up with a new plan. He ends the call with her, and we see him in a sort of hidden Imperial fortress where he meets up with other holograms of Imperial officers who are discussing their plans. Specifically, as they mention, the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is, the new sort of leader of the remnants of the Empire for now. Of course, Moff Gideon doesn't care too much for that and would, rather go with his own sort of plan dealing with the Mandalorians, giving, orders for specific things such as a few Praetorian guards, I think that's what they're called, some bombers, and I think some troops, I believe. And he's able to convince them to, give him these things, while they kind of, twiddled their thumbs trying to really come up with a good plan other than, the somewhat botched cloning plan, whatever that's supposed to be, and, Thrawn waiting in the shadows for whatever he plans to do. Din, Bo-Katan, and her old Mandalorian forces return to Navarro, where they kind of try to help the other Mandalorians kind of get along with these ones, despite their differences and all that. Through that, Bo-Katan mentions their plan to go back to Mandalore, try to find the Great Forge and retake the planet and restore, order to the Mandalorians. Most of them accept this, and they kind of, join forces and also set up a scout party to find the Great Forge and all of that. Quite a bit of people join the group, in fact, and before they prepare to leave, Grief Karga, talks to Din, gives him a bottle of space alcohol from Coruscant, I guess, and also gives him another gift, which is a refurnished IG unit, which is supposed to be what he calls IG-12, and has a hollowed inside on the chest for a small creature to pilot it. And Grogu ends up trying it out, and it actually works. And as a way of, kind of curving the lack of communication Grogu can give, the little pilot system also includes a speak button, or at least yes and no. So Grogu's only able to communicate through that, small little way, which is a little funny. After that, everyone, takes off to Mandalore for the, scouting or whatever, and they successfully make it there, checking everything out, until they find a sort of, kind of like an air boat thing. It's, on the ground, but it's still being piloted through the winds and the sails and all that. The boat stops, and it turns out that the people piloting that boat are Mandalorians as well, some, older ones from the Clone Wars era, and they sort of, make peace with Bo-Katan and mention that not only do they know where the Great Forge is, but they can take them there. And so all of that is pretty good. After some chit-chat interactions and the armor offering to take some of the wounded people on the boat back to the main ship where the other Mandalorians are, they make it to the Great Forge and see that it's, no longer aflame as it used to be. And, just as they're checking it out, seeing what they can do, they're ambushed by some, people in jetpacks and armor, but they're not Mandalorians. They kind of look like a cross between a Mandalorian and a stormtrooper. So they fight them off, and, after taking down some of them, they continue their way through, and then discover that the area they've walked into is a little different than it would have looked. It looks a lot more new and almost imperial, and that's because they walked right into a trap. Moff Gideon had, been there first, and his forces, trapped them. Most of the scout party is trapped by a, pathway that has some doors on it that close. Din is the only one on the outside, and some more jet troopers show up, as well as Moff Gideon in his own Mandalorian style armor with a nice, his nice little classic cape and a little horned helmet, I guess. It's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. He takes off his helmet and, gives his usual villain talk, and says that, they're doomed and all that sort of usual stuff. And just as Din is, fighting the troopers, giving it his all, he's grappled or kind of, wrapped around with grapple cables or whatever, and is, detained, and they take him away. Just as Gideon is telling Bo-Katan to just hand over the Darksaber and, let everything be peaceful and all, she tells the other forces to shoot the door and try to, shoot their way through it, while she tries to use the Darksaber to cut away out the other door on the back. Gideon orders his forces to open the door just to, kill him and all that. Thankfully, the big Mandalorian, played by Jon Favreau, comes through with his big gun and starts taking many of them out. Bo-Katan cuts her way through and gives a nice little hole for everyone to kind of crawl out of. And the big guy's still, mowing through them, and instead of going with them, he shuts the door with a little, keypad, and continues fighting them while everyone else gets out. Unfortunately, it's a little too much, as his big gun overheats, and he resorts to kind of fighting them hand on hand, which would be fine enough until three guys in red suits of armor, the Praetorian Guards Gideon wanted, come in with their kind of energy blades, not really lightsabers, but close enough, and they eventually overwhelm him and kill him. And that's where the episode ends. This was definitely a better episode than the last one, probably the next best one in the season, with the pirate battle and all that. Plenty of good stuff in it. Moff Gideon definitely helps with that, and it sort of setting up the Ahsoka series with with Grand Admiral Thrawn showing up in that. so this could be very interesting. I'm guessing that this is the second to last episode in the season, judging by how it's setting up everything, and because I'm pretty sure the last 2 seasons were also 8 episodes in total. But thankfully, they, finally had a story building up, because the last number of episodes for this season have kind of just vaguely hinted at something but never really delivered. Thankfully, this is delivering more on a story. Hopefully this and the final episode can save this season even by a little bit, and maybe if season 4 happens, I don't know how they're gonna go with this. Maybe they can deliver a better story with season 4, or at least the Dave Filoni crossover movie with all or almost all of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows for one big story, hopefully. I'm gonna give episode 7 an 8 out of 10. Pretty decent, but hopefully it delivers more with the next one. I hope you enjoyed this review of The Mandalorian episode 7. Hope you stay tuned for the next review, maybe even check out some of my other videos. And if you can, like, comment, subscribe. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.